Many of you probably don't know, but Mel Gibson is the reason why I started covering controversy, corruption, specifically the Epstein files right here on this channel. And today we're diving back into the world of Mel Gibson and everything that he told us about Hollywood years ago. For years, he was branded as the crazy actor that fell off the rails and was completely blackballed from Hollywood and really didn't work again with many other producers. He had to produce his own films, but he told us about the Epstein files. He told us about all of the crimes, but no one believed him. But now, with the Epstein files being released, we all look back and say, wow, we made a mistake. This morning, I'm drinking a coffee. Let me know what you're drinking while you're watching the video, and thank you guys for subscribing and supporting the channel. Now, let's dive in.
I believe that they gave me a raw deal because this industry is a monster.
Back in 1998, one of the biggest movie stars on the planet sat down for an interview and warned everyone about a powerful Hollywood producer. And he also called out all of the Hollywood elites. Now, almost 30 years later, the Epstein files came out. And now people are looking at his words all over again, asking the same question: how did Mel Gibson know? And what else did he know that he was never supposed to say out loud? Now, if you don't know much about Mel's background, well, this is a guy who came up to Hollywood in 1956 as a little kid, expecting all the sunshine in Hollywood. But what he saw was completely different. Now, when he was 12, his family packed up and moved all the way to Australia. That's where his acting started. A little movie called Mad Max blew up and turned him into a worldwide star.
A little movie. That's actually funny because Mad Max was massive. And I believe that he actually grew up in New York and then moved himself to Australia.
And the wild part is, this all happened before Hollywood even knew his name. Unlike most stars, Gibson didn't have to play the industry game to make it big. By Lethal Weapon, he was already famous and owed no one. And that's the thing to keep in the back of your mind for this whole video. Most stars are taught early to treat the industry like a religion. You never forget that getting in means giving something up, and you never bite the hand that feeds you. Gibson just never learned that lesson because he never had to. That freedom is exactly what made him dangerous to the people at the top. Which brings us to 1998. Gibson sat down for an interview with Playboy, and in the middle of all the usual movie promo talk, he said something that should have stopped people cold. He described a powerful producer whose whole attitude about women in film was that they should be, in his words, naked or dead. He wouldn't say the name, but the way he described this man fit one person so closely that people today are almost sure he was talking about Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, I mean, Harvey Weinstein was probably one of the worst in the industry on how he required people to give to him, and then he would, in return, give to them roles in movies and things like that. The worst thing about Harvey Weinstein was, yes, he abused tons of actors and actresses as they went through the system, but he was actually powerful enough to deliver on his promises, so he would abuse them. But then he was able to give them what he said he would. So he was actually paying them for the that they had to endure, which made him extremely powerful, because even if actors or actresses knew that the terrible things would happen, they also knew that there was a payoff at the end, and some of them probably felt that it was worth it.
And remember, this was nearly 20 years before the whole world found out the truth about Weinstein in 2017.
I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand.
Right.
And nobody was really bothering to explain it to me.
They don't.
And and I formed a bunch of opinions about the town and about the people in it that were like, surely that couldn't be.
And what did people do with that warning at the time? Nothing. The media didn't dig into it.
The media didn't dig into it, but also us as consumers, we also didn't dig into it. And I know it was a different time in the 90s. Social media wasn't here, so people like myself and other content creators that have no guardrails, we can talk about whatever we want. We weren't able to do that. There was no platform for that. So it was all traditional news and traditional media, which was, covering their mouths because they were in the same exact space. So back in the 90s, the story could be told that media wanted to be told. And we could look at him and say, oh man, Mel Gibson, he used to be so great in Lethal Weapon and Mad Max, but now he's gone crazy. That's too bad.
Nobody investigated, and that producer kept right on working for almost 20 more years. Now, I want to be straight with you for a second. A lot of people online have started asking if Gibson was hinting at other big names too, and you'll see names like Oprah come up in those conversations. I'll be honest, that part is folks connecting dots on the internet, not some proven fact. But it tells you something about how much weight his old words carry now. When this man talks, people listen, even decades later. Okay, now let's talk about the moment Gibson really made Hollywood nervous. And honestly, this is one of my favorite parts of the whole story. In the early 2000s, Gibson wanted to make a movie called The Passion of the Christ. It was about the last hours of Jesus' life, and he wanted to shoot the whole thing in old, dead languages that almost nobody speaks anymore. No big stars. Every major studio he took it to said no.
By the way, after learning about this entire Mel Gibson story and how he exposed Hollywood, I actually watched Passion of the Christ because surprisingly I had never seen it before. And the entire film is not in English at all. I understood nothing. I had to read the entire film, which is something that I actually don't like to do, but it was an extremely good film. Also, extremely disturbing, whether you're someone that's religious or someone that is not religious. It is an extremely disturbing one that if you are able to take a bit of gore, I recommend that you give it a shot.
7 of them. On top of that, a major group warned the film could stir up hate before he'd even shot a single scene.
Crazy movie because it was a great movie, but it seemed like there was resistance to that movie, which I thought was very strange. There was like Hollywood resistance to that movie. Like people didn't like that you were making it.
There was a lot of opposition to it. And I don't know. I think if you ever hit on that subject matter, you're going to get people going because it's big subject matter. And my contention is, when I was making it, it was like, you're making this film and the idea was that we're all responsible for this, that his sacrifice was for all mankind, and that for all our ills and all the things in our fallen nature, it was a redemption.
Now, keep in mind, Passion of the Christ, he didn't make this and produce this and use his own money to make this himself because he wanted to. No Hollywood studios would touch this film. No one wanted to work with Mel Gibson. No one wanted to touch Passion of the Christ either. So he ended up doing this all on his own, utilizing all of his funding, putting everything on the line. So if it made it, he would be highly successful, make a ton of money. But if it failed, he'd be sitting there broke.
And I believe that. I was born into a Catholic family. I'm very Christian in my beliefs. So depicting that was an honor, but it was also, you got the daylights beat out of you for it.
Yeah, because there's resistance, first of all, from secular Hollywood, where for whatever reason, Christianity is the one religion that you're allowed to disparage.
Yeah.
Christianity is the one religion where people, all these progressive, open-minded, leftist people, they'll embrace all these different religions until it comes to Christianity. And for whatever reason, that represents like white male, whatever it represents, colonialism, whatever it represents, it's negative.
Most people would have walked away. Gibson didn't. He put up his own money instead, $45 million of it. He even borrowed against his own property to do it.
Yeah, so he really went all in. I mean, borrowing against property as well puts him in debt, not only uses money that he has in storages.
The movie flopped, he was personally finished, done, over. And the pressure on him was brutal. He was getting mocked everywhere. South Park even built a whole episode around making fun of him in the movie. People genuinely thought he had lost his mind and was about to throw his entire career and his own bank account into the fire for a film in languages nobody could understand. It did not flop. It made $83 million in its opening weekend, and it went on to make over $600 million around the world. And his personal cut, somewhere between $300 and $475 million.
So I guess we can say that it actually worked out for him and he made the right choice.
Sit with that for a second. A man every single studio rejected just made one of the most profitable movies ever, completely on his own, without any of them. And Hollywood noticed. The quiet word around town basically became, "Did you see what that guy just did? We can't let him do that again." But every story like this has a turn, and here's where it comes. In 2006, Gibson got pulled over for drunk driving in Malibu, and during the arrest, he went on an ugly, hateful rant that leaked to the whole world within hours. Then in 2010, it happened again. Audio tapes leaked of him saying racist and threatening things to his ex-partner, stuff you just can't defend. Put those two scandals together, and Gibson went from movie star to the most exiled man in Hollywood.
Now we have to remember that all people, whether you're famous or not, has their dark moments. All people deal with things in their life where they have moments that they're not proud of, where they make mistakes or say things that they shouldn't say. The problem is when you're someone famous like Mel Gibson, a lot of times this stuff comes to the light and everyone can see what's been said. Unfortunately for him, some of his worst moments were publicized and, people looked at him in a negative way because of it. But I truly believe, especially now with the Epstein files being released and people now seeing and knowing that what he was saying was truthful and that he was trying to help all of us all along, that he's gained some grace back with the community.
One of the most powerful agents in the business, a man named Ari Emanuel, wrote an open letter telling the entire industry to boycott him. And it worked. Studios stopped working with him. For almost 10 years, he basically vanished. Now look, I'm not here to defend the things he said. They were wrong, full stop. But hold on to that, because what comes next is where this whole story flips on its head. Here's the part that should make you a little angry. That same agent, Ari Emanuel, the one who told everyone to boycott Gibson forever, he quietly signed Gibson as his own client just 3 years later, in 2009, the moment it became good for business. So much for principles. And that's the small stuff. Let me show you the big stuff. Take Roman Polanski. Back in 1977, he pleaded guilty to a crime against a 13-year-old girl, then ran from the country to avoid prison. And in 2003, while he was still running from the law, Hollywood gave him a standing ovation at the Oscars. They stood up and clapped for him.
A court in Poland is due to rule on filmmaker Roman Polanski's extradition to the US over a child sex crime conviction. The Oscar-winning 82-year-old pleaded guilty in 1977 to...
And he's not the only one.
I mean, we could probably look at so many of the names that we've seen coming through in the Epstein files and say that they would be in a very similar position to this man right here, that they have done the same crimes, and that none of them have ever had to pay any prices for their crimes.
Were directors with serious accusations and even convictions who kept getting hired again and again. One man convicted of hurting a child served barely over a year, then got handed jobs directing movies for kids. So let's put this side by side. Gibson said terrible things while drunk. Awful, yes, but he didn't physically hurt anyone like that. Meanwhile, men with real physical crimes on their record kept their careers, their awards, their standing ovations. You start to see the pattern, right? Hollywood doesn't throw you out for the worst crimes. It throws you out for the loud, public mess it can't quietly clean up. So how does a man come back from being the most hated guy in town? Slowly. Very, very slowly. In 2016, Gibson directed a war movie called Hacksaw Ridge, and it was good. So good that the Academy gave it 6 Oscar nominations. You could almost feel Hollywood squirming, trying to decide whether to celebrate a film they couldn't deny was great, made by a man they swore was finished.
And the Oscar goes to Hacksaw Ridge.
And just like that, the roles started trickling back.
I mean, we have to be honest. He's a good producer. He makes good movies.
Same town that threw him out cracked the door open again. Then, in 2023, Gibson's name got tied to a movie called Sound of Freedom. It was about children being trafficked, and Gibson helped get it made. And the moment it came out, people started saying Hollywood was trying to bury it. Now here's why that matters. For years, Gibson had been hinting that powerful people were mixed up in really dark things, and that it was all being covered up. A lot of folks called that crazy talk, but then the Epstein story broke wide open. The flight logs, the witnesses, the connections to world leaders and billionaires. And all of a sudden, the crazy talk didn't sound so crazy anymore. And I want to be careful here, because the internet ran wild with this one. A bunch of shocking quotes started going around online, supposedly from Gibson, about elites doing horrifying stuff. The truth is, almost all of those quotes were completely made up. He never said them, but people believe them anyway. And that tells you everything about how the public sees this guy now. He has become a kind of symbol. To some, he's a truth teller who got punished. To others, he's a warning about what anger and bad behavior can do to a person. The real story is probably somewhere in the messy middle, which brings us to right now, and the reason this story changes everything all over again. In January 2025, Donald Trump named Mel Gibson a special ambassador to Hollywood. Let that sink in. The man the industry declared dead and buried is now an official set of eyes inside the very place that tried to erase him. On top of that, he's now filming the sequel to The Passion of the Christ, called The Resurrection of the Christ. Some people think it could turn into one of the biggest movies ever made.
Mel and I do The Resurrection. Well, that one is going to be a game changer like nobody can imagine. And those two films will be the biggest films in the history of the world.
And here's the line that ties the whole thing together. With the Epstein files coming out between late 2025 and early 2026, that warning Gibson gave way back in 1998 doesn't read like a wild theory anymore. It reads like a man who saw the truth early, said it out loud, and got punished for it, while the real monsters got protected.
So as we said, 20 years ago, Mel Gibson was telling us about the industry. He got worse and worse in the eyes of all of us, in the eyes of Hollywood, looking at him as crazy and unhinged. But he's clawed his way back through solid films, showing that he's a really good producer, and it definitely helped him that the truth is now coming out amongst all of us regarding the Epstein files and evil Hollywood. Were you someone that had all of that hatred for Mel Gibson and boycotted him years ago? Or are you someone that believed him all along? Now, I do have deeper stories on Mel. If you want to check them out, you could take a look at this video. And guys, I'll see you over there.